5P is a solid close-range poke and anti-air, with the downside of whiffing against most characters crouching. 2P is your fastest counterpoke that will hit crouchers, and it has solid range for a punch. 5K is a great mid-range button that has two different hitboxes that come out at different timings. The first hit is a little shorter and comes out frame 7, with the ball and chain extended part hits frame 9. Being 2D, 5D, and dash cancelable makes it a great overall tool, especially when used as an anti-air. 2K is one of the best close-range low pokes in the game, being 6-frame startup with low profile between frames 6 and 20. It combos into itself on counter hit, making it fine to poke out with and not commit to immediately, though going right into 2D does get our set play going. Far Slash is our best long-range poke, especially if you want to remain fairly safe on whiff. It works the same way as 5K in that it has an extended hitbox slightly on frame 15, but the first hitbox comes out frame 11. It's mostly used to deter people from using 2K or 2S to beat out your other long-range normals. 2S is a very situational normal, mostly used with servants in neutral or pressure, but can be used as an anti-air. It gives better reward than a 6P and can hit in situations where 6P wouldn't, so if you're confident with it, don't hold back. 5H is a great advancing attack that leads into a quick knockdown. It hits on both sides and is disjointed in the front, though it becomes much more disjointed on the second hit. The weakness is that it hits high, so it loses to low attacks, but this is where Far Slash becomes the deterrent. They can't just use low commitment lows like 2Ks or 2Ps since the disjoint reaches further first. Mostly use it as a whiff punish tool or against patient opponents. It's practically safe on block, and the reward on counter hit is very nice too, but terrible on whiff, so be careful throwing it out. It's very useful, especially when paired with Wild Assault. 2H is mainly used for combos and occasionally in pressure, but even with the disjoint, it's just slow, has short range, and long recovery, so I'd avoid it in neutral. 2D does pretty much everything Jacko wants. It's a very active and forward advancing low that gives a knockdown into a set play or a great combo on counter hit. It's active from frames 10 to 33, which is great, but comes with the downside of being very whiff punishable. While it doesn't have a disjoint, it does have a good forward hitbox, and the low profile is nice to have, though many Far Slash and 5Hs will still hit you. And with no cancels, it's up to -19, but spaced out it can be as little as -8. A quick rundown on the RPS on this normal being blocked is that you can frame trap from it with 236K, but that can be backdashed and punished by a 10-frame normal or faster, assuming they're close enough to connect. 236K alone is -12 being unsafe too, but that can be cancelled into 214P to reduce the recovery to -3. Or you can just do 2D into 214P directly and be -6, but leave yourself immediately within pressure range. Our 6P is fairly standard with the solid hitbox, and on counter hit it goes into a hard knockdown for set play, making it overall very useful. And when the servants are switched behind them, the reward on 6P jumps up. 6H is a situational move. It can be used as a preemptive anti-air, but it's slow, easy to miss, and doesn't give good damage or Oki. It can be used with servants for combos, pressure, and Oki well, just not great for neutral. JP is a solid spammable air-to-air button that brings them to the ground, and can also be used in fuzzy mix-ups for the overhead option. JK is a good air-to-air button that can lead into combos. JS is the go-to IED button since it hits both same side and cross-up. JH also hits both sides and can be more plus, but can be a bit more difficult to hit the way you'd like. It does get much better with servants. Super Jump IED JS JH is much more plus on block, but harder to get the right spacing and height for. JD is a bit unique as a projectile that halts air momentum to help regen your servant gauge. It can be hard to 6P unless it's one of the very high reaching ones, so it's generally safe unless they can get under it quickly. On block and on hit, it is jump and air dash cancelable, so make sure to use those options you have as needed. Jacko's servants last for 8 seconds, but go away when you are hit, block anything, or if the opponent hits them. Hitting it once makes it lose 3 seconds, and hitting it twice makes it go away when it recovers. Hitting the servants also lets you cancel into another move quickly, like if you hit the opponent. Servants will always stay on screen even if you or the opponent tries to run away from them. The gauge is made up of green and gray bars. The green bar shows how many servants you can summon, and the gray shows how many commands you can give them. The lower the gauge, the faster it recovers. From 0 to 1 bar takes about 1.5 seconds, where from 2 to 3 bars takes closer to 3 seconds. Also, the more servants are on screen, the longer it takes to regen. But each command uses only 1 bar even if there's more than 1 servant. Holding punch while taking out the servant lets you hold it, giving access to a backdash, but you can't block, throw, or do any normal attack. Press dust to drop the servant. If you hold the servant and then jump while holding dust, she'll drop it as soon as possible in the air. You can buffer this by doing 236P, holding P, dust, and jump. This lets you use your air normals to send the servant many different ways, and even jump cancel the hit to stall. Holding forward and pressing an attack button while holding the servant will let you throw them. If you throw or hit the servant, it will have a hitbox, but if you drop it after holding, then it won't. If the gray bar is lower than 1, then you can't use any commands. Unless you're holding the servant, then you can do as many commands as you like. Hitting the servant with 5p, 5k, /, 5h, or 6p all send forward, but quickly curves down, covering the mid to long ranges. Dropping a held servant and quickly 6ping is the fastest way to send it across the screen, but 5h and throwing servants are great too. 2s doesn't reach a place servant, but dropping a held one into 2s covers the air really well and hits full screen. 6h can also be used to anti-air, but cancel after the first hit, and dust covers the same angle but is much worse overall. Quick airdrop JS and place servant into 2h both cover a good area bouncing in front of you. Quick airdrop JH and J236K are great full screen options just like jump into throw. 2K and 2D are difficult to use well with servants and neutrals since you tend to go under them unless you drop it and time it well, but even then it's not really worth it. Also, 2P picks the servant back up, but you can avoid doing this by holding down forward or down back into punch. This can be abused by hitting the servant and cancelling into 2P to make her whiff picking it up, which makes you recover much faster. While hitting servants with normals to move them forward loses to projectiles, using 236K or holding and throwing them makes it beat most projectiles. The servants do bounce off each other and keep the momentum, so make sure to play around with this in training mode to get used to it. Kicking a servant and pulling another one will leave you very plus, but not plus enough for you to force them to block a second one. You can use the gray bar to give servants 4 commands, but the most common will be the attack and defend commands. The attack command is disjointed, advancing, plus 15 on block, and pops up on hit for combos, making it incredibly powerful. All commands take 1 command gauge and pauses regen for 1 second except for the countdown command. The held servant version is only plus 3, but it's rare that you'd use this outside of combos. Overall, it's the command that you'll use by far the most since it's used in almost everything that makes her good. The defend command parries attacks and destroys projectiles. The parry starts frame 4 and lasts for an insane 28 frames. It costs 1 bar to use, but restores it if the parry is successful. It's better against jump-ins than the attack command, and if you were holding the servant, then you can get a combo from it easier. But the parry can't kill by itself, even if they have 1 HP. It does have 2 weaknesses. First is that there's no hitbox until it is hit, so they can simply run up and throw you. Second is that low-profile moves avoid it, so moves like Stun Dipper are very effective. It's good to react to against a number of projectiles, but while it's still in recovery from parrying, you can't launch the servants. You can just wait a little longer before hitting it, but they probably would have moved around during that time. If it's a slower projectile, it's better to just kick it at them. Also, the parry does not protect you from supers. The countdown command sets a timer for 3 seconds before the servants self-destruct. It pauses regen, and when they explode, it brings the gauge to 0. It gives easy combos on hit and guard crushes on block, but you need to be careful since they can hit you too. It's practically never used in neutral, but can be effective in pressure and Oki. Recall gets rid of all the servants and refills the gauge by half a command gauge and 1 full bar of summon gauge per servant. It's never really used for this purpose, but instead to reduce recovery of moves since it cancels and recovers really quickly. It can turn 2D from -19 or worse down to -6, or 5H from -6 to -1. Since moves like 2K already have fast recovery, it will not help moves like that. Jumping and throwing the servant behind them is the most basic neutral idea to sandwich them for easy approaches into plus frames. IED back throw is also good, but more to try to hit them out of moves. Their counterplay to this is to hit the servants as they fly. If they use a 5K, then they can jump cancel and try to approach or reposition. If you time it right, you can do an attack command before it reaches them and use the disjoint to stop them. Or you can use the defend command to protect the servant. Using either of these commands really early can help you keep them safe or reposition them. But doing this lets them run up on you easily. If they block the servant and then try to mash a mid, it is likely to whiff since they drop to the floor first. If they want to hit it, they'll need to use a low hitting move. But you can use the attack command to stuff this or even throw another servant to stop them. Also keep in mind if they hit the servant, they can cancel from it just like you. When they hit the servant, it extends how long they're in recovery, letting you punish moves like 6Ps easier. But if they know to cancel, then keep track of what they use and decide how to approach based on that. Also, if they block the servant, you cannot interact with it until it lands and recovers. Your move will simply go right through it. However, if you give it a command, then it gets reset and is interactable again. If you can get them sandwiched, then they're in a tough spot since they can't hit it. From this point, you can either go right into an approach with 2D or 5H into a servant attack, or do the attack immediately. If you time a frame trap servant attack, then you'll get a full combo, so it's very much in your favor if they choose wrong on either option. If you don't do the attack command, then they can IED back and hit the servant, or neutral jump and potentially whiff punish you since you're not plus enough to run up on them. But you may get lucky and be able to 6p them for jumping back and hitting the servant. It is possible they could stuff you on your approach, but the servant attack wins and you may still beat them out if you're early enough. Even if they try to dash block forward to get away, they can't escape the servant attack. But if they start running right as you throw it, you'll be in a dangerous spot. Assuming you did throw, then attack, doing the second attack is great from keeping them from mashing, but you'll run out of gauge as soon as you start pressure. Just keep in mind you have a great backdash and low profiles to help keep you safe. If you have multiple servants between you and the opponent, it acts as basically a blocked off path for them. So instead of focusing on where the servants are, focus on how they'd get around them. Matchups like Axel and Happy Chaos, they force you to block often, making servants really difficult to get out and keep out even with the defend command. You'll need to try to focus more on whiff punishes or quick stray hits to get servants into play. This will force riskier options, but that's the limit of her design. It is still possible to get the servants into play, but you'll need to understand the patterns of your opponent and play around them. JD and using her stalling options to force them into changing up their habits is great. Jumping and dropping a servant, then JS, then double jump JD into a servant command is her best stall tactic. Her 18 frame backdash lets her be a bit more evasive compared to the typical 20 frame backdash. In a bit closer range, dropping a servant into 5k and dash cancelling lets you approach with an active projectile that is very plus. Or if you want to avoid grounded pokes, airdropping into JS then kick works well. The defense super gives 6 seconds of near invincible servants. They have infinite guard point and don't go away if they are hit or if you are hit, only through burst or supers. It pauses their duration so you can hit them as much as you want and they won't go away. It's best to set this up when you are far away to help avoid extra RPS. Since the attack command technically starts frame 3 but doesn't come out until the servant fully attacks, it lets you have a 3-frame startup move that comes out even if you get hit. The only downside to this super is that if you have 3 servants out and they're in a spot you don't like, you can't just get one to go away and pull a new one. The attack super fills the command gauge immediately and refills it as fast as you can use it for 3 seconds. It has a heavy meter penalty but pauses the duration like the defense super so they won't go away after you hit them, but they don't have any of the protections that the other super gives. This is the crux of her offensive chip setups and plus frame loops. I'll get to those in the next video, but that's all for now. Thank you for watching.